I don't know about you, but I'm not always crazy about buying a $3 to $4 car just to steal its wheels and stick them on a $1 car. So I decided to go on a journey, one that I hope that you'll join me on. A journey to make our own wheels for just a couple cents a piece. This is going to be the first of several videos on making Real Riders at home. Each video will focus on some aspect of the process in detail. For example, this video will focus on tool design. By breaking everything up, my hope is that you, the viewer, will lend your expertise in areas that you may know more about. Many minds are always greater than one. Before we dive in the first video, please understand that this is all prototyping at this stage. Don't expect perfection on the first try. Also, I'm not setting any firm standards in the way anything should be done. I'm switching things up constantly to see if a better outcome can be found. So just because I do it one way in this video doesn't mean that it's always the best way. If you know a better way, please let me know below. Okay, making Real Riders at home is a balancing act. Our price point to beat is around $3.70 for 4 wheels. The goal is to be able to make reasonably high quality replicas in a reasonable amount of time at a very little material cost. This is something I think can be done if enough effort is put into it. The idea that I'm going for is rooted in tool design, or better put, if we have the right set of tools, we can make the wheels quickly and cheaply, even if the cost of making the tools is high, and by high I mean a couple bucks. That cost distributed across hundreds of wheels goes to nothing. So what you're watching right now is a metal rod turning in my lathe. I'm cutting the rod's diameter to the same size as the inside of a Real Rider rim. I'm using the lathe right now for its speed. Ideally you would just want to buy rod in the diameter you would need, but right now I'm experimenting and not really sure what size to get, so a lathe works great at making whatever size rod you might want. This lathe that I'm using is from Harbor Freight and costs around $500, not including the cutting tools and other accessories you will need. I don't know how anyone can do customizing without a lathe and milling machine, but one of the goals is to find a way that the end user will not need a lathe. The rod is going to be our first tool. This particular rod will be used to punch out 5-spoke wheels. Right now I'm cleaning up or facing the end of the rod. This will be the business end of the tool, and it needs to be perfectly flat and as smooth as possible. Once the face is flat and the diameter is where I want it to be, we can move on to the next step. The next step is to drill a hole at the end of the rod. This needs to be done with a tool designed just for this task. This drill bit is very small and very rigid, allowing it not to wander like a twist drill bit would. The hole doesn't need to be very deep. I made it around 3 millimeters. The rod is made of rolled steel and is very easy to drill. This comes in real handy when you're going to work it for as much as we are. With that all done, we now have what I call a tool blank. This is the starting point of any wheel design we make. If this all seems confusing right now, just hold on. It's all going to make sense here in a bit. Alright, the tool is now loaded into a vise, but before I place it there, I use the 5-spoke wheel as a stencil to mark where the 5 spokes need to go on our tool. I just use an airbrush over the wheel to do the markings. Once the marks are there, I use a small file to start a cut at one of the spokes, and then a hacksaw to cut all the way through to the middle of the wheel. This tool is a negative of a wheel. You'll see how all this works in a bit. So here's what it looks like after all the cuts are made. A lot of care should be placed in not letting the saw scrape against the side or the top of the tool, as this will show up in the final product. The next step is to use some 600 grit sandpaper to clean up any burrs that may exist on the edges. You can also use the sandpaper to smooth off the top if you like. With our tool where we want it, we can now heat treat and harden the end. To do this, we'll be using a torch to get the metal red hot and then plunge it in water. This causes the crystalline structure of the metal to form quickly, giving us a hardened tool that can take much more abuse than the soft metal it was before. Please note that once this step is done, working on the tool will become difficult if not impossible. Attempting to cut it or file it will result in a useless saw and file. Also, it goes without saying that heating metal with a torch is dangerous. Please use caution if attempting this, and also be aware that when the tool plunges into the water, steam is created that can also burn you. With the hardening process complete, we can now put our tool to good use. To do this, we'll take the tool and insert a wheel blank on the end. I'll explain how to make these in another video, but essentially it's just a small piece of aluminum in the shape of a Wheelwriter wheel but with no internal detail. Place the blank on the end and then place the blank and the tool on top of a vise. Then with a hammer, strike the tool, delivering several sturdy blows. If everything is done correctly, you'll have a mushroomed wheel blank stuck on the end of your tool. Do not try and remove it yet, as this offers us a great opportunity to true up the wheel and smooth out the back. To do this, I'll take the tool and load it into the lathe and then reface the wheel and remove the mushroom in the aluminum. I'll be going into a lot more depth and explain ways we can keep from having to do this in my future video on making the wheel blanks. But for now, our first wheel is done. And here's the final result. Popping the wheels off the tool is pretty easy. Just use a pair of pliers and wrap the wheel with a cloth before you yank it off. So now I'm going to hammer out 3 more wheels and then stick them all in a car. The car I chose was this Mystery Machine, for no other reason than it was just sitting here. The tires on the wheels come from a real set of Wheelwriters, but making tires for our wheels won't be that hard, and it will be in a future video. On the other side, I attempted to paint the wheels. Please ignore this, as I have not perfected this process at all. The wheels do spin, but will need some work on their backs, something I'll go over in a later video. What is important to me now is your opinion on this specific process. The way I see it, we could make several different punch tools for a variety of different wheels, and then punch them out as we need them. The results seem to be very repeatable. So far I've only ruined 1 tire, and that was because I tried to take a shortcut. I know I'm leaving a lot out, tires, wheel blanks, and whatnot, but it's a lot easier to make a bunch of short specific videos than a huge 2-hour long video, especially since many of the specifics will probably change as we go along. Anyway, please give your thoughts below. If you have any ideas, I would love to hear them. Until the next video, thanks for watching.